Okay. Lesson 9, Fictional Prabhupadas. So here's the transition. Studying our founder-acharya's teachings without studying his life and how he lived and applied those teachings can lead to impersonalism. And becoming attached to our founder-acharya's personality without studying, what to speak of following his teachings, can lead to sentimentalism. Before we continue to explore how to deepen our love for Srila Prabhupada, let's identify and dispel any lingering impersonal and sentimental misconceptions about him. So that's what this lesson is about. It's an interesting lesson, kind of a curious lesson. So there we see, I chose 2 drawings, which the artist has sincerely rendered of Srila Prabhupada. They're not as full, of course, as the paintings and the photographs. So I chose those because they could be taken as representative of maybe shadow Prabhupads, like that, reflection Prabhupads, Abbas Prabhupads. Okay, so let's launch in. And first we'll take a look at the list of the impersonal fictions. By fictions I mean imaginations. That's what fiction is. Okay, so first we're going to look at the fiction that Prabhupada is God. It sounds wild, but as most of you know, it actually happened. There was this misconception that Prabhupada is Krishna. Prabhupada, all caps, underline, is ISKCON. That's to say that he's ISKCON only. That's incomplete. So it's a fiction if we just leave it at that. Prabhupada is ISKCON. Similarly, Prabhupada is the GBC. Prabhupada is Nityasiddha, he's beyond the 4 defects. We're not, but the more we align ourselves with Prabhupada, we can actually execute his will nicely. So it's incomplete to simply merge Prabhupada into our governing body. Next fiction. Prabhupada is the guru only of his initiated disciples. As Sridhananda Maharaj so eloquently put it at the recent Prabhupada festival in Los Angeles back in May. He made so many nice points, and one of them was that when Prabhupada would announce or introduce or identify himself vis-a-vis ISKCON, he would say, he wouldn't introduce himself as the Diksha Guru of ISKCON, but he'd introduce himself as the founder-acarya of ISKCON. So that's very significant. So to simply identify Prabhupada as the guru of his initiated disciples and leave it at that, he's the Diksha Guru of 4,800 people at a certain point of piece of time. That's very incomplete, and it's impersonal, actually, to just cut it off there. Okay, so let's take a look at these. Fiction, Prabhupada is God. There is yet another mood that our godbrother Bhargava captured Prabhupada in the summer of 73 at Bhaktivedanta Manor. I'm listening to Prabhupada's Gita classes right now from that period. Very thorough, sweet, strong classes, first and second chapter Gita classes by Prabhupada. And there's Prabhupada looking rather stern. And I chose that because he's now looking sternly at this. Okay, the fiction is Prabhupada is God, and here's the fact. And we sing it every morning if we sing Mangalarti, Vishwanath's famous stanza, and the translation. Quote, the spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord, because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. So, you can take that impersonally, which was done in the summer of 1970. And here's another fact, and this is coming right from Srila Prabhupada's own mouth, giving his verdict on the Prabhupada is God mistake. Quote, there is only one thing worse than underestimating the Guru, overestimating the Guru. They have said I am God, therefore if I am God, they also can become God. This is impersonalism, So without going through the whole story, the brief backstory is that Prabhupada's position as founder-acarya had been compromised in the minds of some of his leading disciples. They were getting somewhat contaminated by some jealous people in India, and they were getting a minimized, compromised conception of Prabhupada, relativized conception. So Prabhupada knew exactly what was going on. They were trying to even control Prabhupada. So to purify them of this contamination, he did a very proactive thing. Our spiritual master, he gave them sannyas. He didn't simply, he didn't take anything away from them. He actually gave them more responsibility. And, but it wasn't but a couple of months after he did that, psychologically overcompensating for their mistake of underestimating him, minimizing his position, they rajasically, in the mode of passion, began to say something that was equally strange and crown him God. So Prabhupada was furious, and he expelled them with the proviso they could come back if they preached away from the association of devotees, opened up temples, brought people into the fold, and which they did. They were sincere, and so that was that. So that was the first full-blown Mayavad weed right inside Prabhupada's movement. He acted swiftly, strongly. When the word came down to us at New Vrindavan, who were at this festival where these sannyasis were preaching this, that's how it came down. The GBC, their first official act was to telegram Prabhupada, because Prabhupada had just formed the GBC too. July 28th he had formed the GBC, July 29th he formed the BBT. So their first official act was to telegram Prabhupada and ask Prabhupada what to do. They're saying this: you just made these people sannyasis, people respect them, they're leaders, half the people are believing them, we don't believe it, we think it's crazy. So Prabhupada said, expel them. Okay, as wild as it sounds, it actually happened. So put nothing past the personality of Kali on how we can try to throw a monkey wrench into the Hare Krishna movement. Prabhupada is God. Okay, we're going to stop for questions and comments after the impersonal fictions before we go to the sentimental fictions. So if anything, comment, question arises in your mind, please make a note. Hold that thought. Write down that thought, and we'll get to you. Okay. Yes, Ramananda.
We never muted it because I thought you wanted audience participation throughout. Or should I just go ahead and mute everything?
No. Well, I mean, I just said that you can ask. All right, because I just said that. If you like, because we did have an interference there for a few minutes. I guess you want to.
Yeah, I had Skype.
Okay, so as soon as we finish the impersonal misconceptions, you can unmute everybody and we'll open it up for questions and comments. Go ahead, you can do that.
All right, just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, it's done.
Okay, here we go. Impersonal fiction number 2. Fiction. Prabhupada is ISKCON. Now that's meant to be a very provocative statement because by nature we're contrarians. That's why we're in the material world. So the mind's going to object, well, what do you mean? Of course Prabhupada's ISKCON. Well, yeah, one and different. So here's how it works. Fact, Srila Prabhupada is the life and soul of ISKCON and all of his serious and sincere followers. So, of course, ISKCON is Srila Prabhupada's energy. He created it to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. He is reported to have said, although I couldn't find it, but there was a lot of reliable ear witness testimony that Prabhupada said on several occasions, ISKCON is my body and the BBT is my heart. So, but if we simply say that Prabhupada is ISKCON, Especially now that he's disappeared from our vision, he's somehow merged into ISKCON. That's impersonal. Sometimes ISKCON gets sick. And the only way it gets better is when we get back to Prabhupada's life, teachings, mood, and mission, his true spirit. That's how it's healed. Sometimes it gets sick in a big way, per the infamous zonal acharya era. Sometimes it gets sick locally, and we have to go to the particular spot in ISKCON where it's going off the rails. So it's incomplete, again, just to say Prabhupada is ISKCON. Here's another fact. Quote, in ISKCON, Prabhupada himself remains present generation after generation as the single prominent Shiksha Guru, immanent, not imminent, but immanent, means all-pervading, in the life of each and every ISKCON devotee, a perpetual, indwelling, active, guiding, and directing presence. He is thus the soul of ISKCON. This is an excerpt from the forthcoming The Position of Srila Prabhupada paper coming out from the Prabhupada Position Committee. It's going to actually be a booklet. We now have a deadline of September because the GBC meetings are in October. So he, just like this, we have a body and we have us. So we are all pervading in the body. So Prabhupada, his spirit should be, if we're keeping him front and center, if we're keeping him focused, he is the life and soul of ISKCON, and his energy, his mood, his mission, his life, his teaching, it pervades the whole body of ISKCON. But still, he's his own person. He's Nityalila now, and we're still relating him to as our founder-acarya, and he can still reciprocate with us if we're serious and sincere. So we can't limit Prabhupada to ISKCON. Okay? But if we're lined up with his will, we can become a wonderful tool in Prabhupada and Krishna's hands to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Okay, fiction 3. Prabhupada is the GBC. Similar thing. Certainly, well, let's get the fact here. Okay, fact. The governing body commission, GBC, will be the ultimate managing authority of the entire International Society for Krishna Consciousness. That's right out of Prabhupada's will. And there are other statements, but this is, the final statement, so why not use that one? Just as ISKCON can get sick, sometimes our leadership can get sick. And the only way that we can rectify is when we are all very much in touch, again, with Vani Prabhupada, eternal Prabhupada. And that's what happens. When we do start to list, the good ship ISKCON starts to list or even take in water, we have to patch it and we have to purify it by getting back to Prabhupada, whom we're all accountable to. The GBC is the ultimate managing authority, therefore it's especially incumbent upon the leaders to be fully absorbed in Prabhupada's life and teachings. But all of us. And the more all of us are, the more we'll be capable of, raising a red flag when things go off. And we won't have to wait 20 years, for things to get back on course. So we have to really, all of us, all generations, all parts of the world, no matter what the sub-sangha, sub-sangha meaning disciples of this and that, or member of this and that, we have to be focused on our founder-acharya to keep ISKCON healthy. So he's not merely the GBC, he's our founder-acharya, Srila Prabhupada, and we're all accountable to him. Fiction. Prabhupada is the guru only of his initiated disciples. We touched upon this a little bit at the beginning. Let's look at the fact. Fact. Srila Prabhupada is the foundational Shiksha Guru for all ISKCON devotees because he has realized and presented the teachings of the previous acharyas of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya appropriately for the modern age. That's just the first item of that 1994 GBC resolution. It's called the founder statement, the founder-acharya statement. So there we have this beautiful image. Srila Prabhupada famously dancing in ecstasy at the 1974 San Francisco Ratha Yatra, surrounded by adoring disciples. But he's not just for those of us who were present on the earth when Prabhupada was present. He's for everybody for all time. And he's inviting everybody with his hands upraised to get to know him as our main primary foundational guru, our founder-acharya. There's other items in that GBC resolution which are also very interesting, but that's the first one, and we bring this up at different times in the seminar. Why does the GBC now have a committee to promote this? It's because even though the resolution was passed 18 years ago now, here we are 2012, it's not consistently educated like this. People have different conceptions of Srila Prabhupada vis-a-vis their Shiksha and Diksha gurus. And they've often been very unhealthy and divisive and sectarian. You know, the old my guru is better than your guru syndrome, which, you know, came up in the Zonal Acharya era. It still goes on. In many places, we're still in the sandbox, if you will, of my guru is better than your guru. This kind of kanishta, political, sectarian, divisive mentality will not serve Prabhupada's mood and mission well. If we want to continue as a united body of devotees, a branch, an authentic branch of the Chaitanya tree, ISKCON, together on Prabhupada's page, we need to get over this and really get focused on our founder Acharya's life teachings, mood and mission. And whoever is giving us that, all praise, all glory. And we can have very thick, intimate, practical, human, day-to-day relationships with those people who are tuned in to Prabhupada's mission. Okay, those are impersonal fictions. There's a little hint of sentimental fictions. Ramananda, you can unmute, and we're open for questions and comments.
Okay, just give me a moment to do that. All right. Okay. That's it. Any questions or comments?
Any sincere, constructive, anything. There's no such thing as a stupid question. There's only a thought to be improved.
I have something.
I missed one thing. I don't know if it's because your voice broke up or I was spacing out. And it's hard to speak because I'm echoing.
I can hear you fine.
I'll try.
Okay.
Prabhu?
Yeah.
Could you mute yourself momentarily, because that's probably where the echo is coming from.
I don't even know how to do that. Where do I go?
Oh.
First, I got to get out of the slideshow, and then
is a
and
icon.
then go there.
There's an icon of a microphone.
Yeah, on the control panel.
Yeah. Black. Yeah, just click that one. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so Narahari, can you?
Okay.
Oh, see, that's what it was. And then Vidagda, I think, wanted to say something. Okay, go ahead.
This is just a clarification, a really easy, quick question, or ask to repeat something. You were talking about the controversy back in 1970, where the second misconception was that the devotees had the mistaken idea that Prabhupada was God. What was the one before that one, the first one? Number two was Prabhupada is God. He himself is God. What was number one?
No, that was number one, Narahari.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then what was number two?
Prabhupada is God. That's it. That was the first misconception. I mean, it's so egregious and it's so obvious, you think, why even bring it up? But it actually happened. So I put it front and center, number one.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Vidagda Madhavaji.
Okay. Dandavad.
Dandavad.
So once I heard that you were offered a managing position in this case, and you honestly declined. I'm getting an echo. We need to mute them.
Okay, let me mute.
Okay. And you modestly declined that you needed time to read and chant, which I thought was, interesting. It was an interesting response, because I've also heard Urmila talk about these 6-hour meetings in Mayapur where, they just get so flustered, they just start, for expediency, they just start going through the list rather quickly and just they're not discussing it anymore. So the other day, Hanumat Swami mentioned in his class that perhaps it would be a good idea to encourage the leaders to retire at 55, that we could make a rule like that. And even Srila Prabhupada, who wanted to focus on the translation of Srimad Bhagavatam, begged his senior men to take the burden of management from him. So, thinking about the emphasis that Prabhupada put on the ashrams, brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, it seems like anyone who's in this process, devotional process, at some point they would probably want to withdraw from management and focus on their, hearing and chanting, preparing for, their exit from this world. Do you want to say something about that?
Okay, I guess I'm unmuted. At first, Srila Prabhupada appointed GBCs for a certain term, and then by the end it was for life. And sometimes GBCs point to that. But if I were a GBC and I were pointing to that, I would think that would be a red flag for somebody to wave. Why are you pointing to that? I don't know if I can comment on, when you started your comment, you were talking about that you'd heard I declined a managerial position because I wanted time to hear and chant. I just don't have managerial intelligence. I mean, everybody has to have some just to make it through the day, obviously. And we all have to hear and chant, no matter what our varna is, or our ashram. If we're aspiring Vaishnavas, we all have to follow some basic instructions to hear and chant about Krishna. But that will vary according to who we are and what our contribution is to the mission. So for some, it's their service to hear and chant all the time, in terms of if you extend chanting to, say, writing or singing or speaking, and hearing to reading Prabhupada's books, that's the Brahminical Varna. And some will be doing other things. So as regards retiring, maybe what I should do, Vidagda, is since you said that Maharaj brought that up, and wouldn't it be a good idea, considering we're all going to face the grim reaper, or the sweet reaper, hopefully, because we're hopefully not rats in the cat's mouth, we're trying to become kittens in the cat's mouth. There should come a time in everyone's life when that's what they do. Whoever you are, whatever your upadi is, whatever your service is, from GBC to, ABC. I'll bring that up to Shesha and see what he says, because he's a good friend here in Gainesville, Alachua, and every Friday he gives Bhagavatam class, and he just gave yesterday, and that would be, if I write that down, that would be fresh, that kind of answer. I'll ask him, and then he could answer that for me, as because it is interesting, isn't it, that Prabhupada finally said at the end, GBC for life. So we'll just talk about it, I don't really have an answer for you at the moment. And he's a very balanced person, and he's not, attached to a position like that. He's got a family, he's got work, he serves ISKCON as a GBC, but, he's good. So why don't I just park that question in the parking lot and write it down now, make a note to myself to ask him about that, and I can probably have a better answer for you from someone who does hear and chant, and who is in the Grihastha ashram, but also serves on the GBC, and who is his own man, who speaks very candidly. Is that all right?
Sure. I also hear Urmila and Hanuman Swami talk about the renounced order, how it might harmonize so well with managerial responsibility.
Yeah. So let me just write that down. Shesha, management, GBC, retire. I'm just putting the key words down here. And yeah. But that's it makes you wonder why Prabhupada said for life, you know. But so he had a reason. So let's see what Shesha says. Okay. Should we go to sentimental fictions or anybody else?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
If you could mute, I hear my mic would be easy.
Whoops, let me mute. Yugala, let me mute, and then you won't hear yourself.
Thank you. I since Vidagda Madhava brought this, it's very interesting actually. I really encourage what you said. You may put this question to another devotee. So in my mind, actually, this morning was that I don't know, maybe already exists in ISKCON some kind of program for helping those advanced souls who gave their life to ISKCON at the end of their lives, you know, like taking care of them, whatever needs they have. So because it looks like I said, I'm not aware, maybe something like this going on, but it's all about how we relate to each other and how we take care of each other. And, you know, this kind of looks like we need to improve on that one. So I just asking you, maybe you know more about anything like that existing. Anything.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to connect with what you just said to what Vidagda Madhava Prabhu just said, and it's interesting you made that comment because we were discussing a certain person who's serving on the GBC, and in other words, by your comment, is it you're suggesting that maybe when people are in that position for so long, that maybe they feel that's, in a sense, their security, because they have a position. And then they feel that if they're not in that position, they don't have any security. You know, who's going to take care of them? And that's their security. Is that what's sort of behind your question, or?
No, I didn't mean that. I just, in general, that just Prabhupada's also was last words that you're going to show how you love me by how you treat each other, how you cooperate. So I would think that this would be very important part, that to take care of those if in need, your people that sometimes I see that a lot of devotees who are advanced souls, they're getting old and they have all kinds of problems, you know, material or physical or whatever it is. It should be some kind of program to take care of them. They need, that's all.
Okay, well, I mean, this is more and more, probably because time is passing for all of us, it's prominent. It's one of the strategic planning team's committees. You know, we have this Prabhupada Position Committee that I'm on, and then that's one of the big, I think Urmila's on the CARE Committee, and that's a big issue. And it's more and more becoming, at least, you know, popular to talk about it and start doing stuff about it. And devotees are well aware that wherever there is a counseling system, for example, and where our devotees are cared for as being the most important resource, you know, not just the buildings, not just the money, not just the whatever, the numbers, but devotees, people are obviously the most important resource, that yatra thrives. You know, it started in Chopati with Radhanath Maharaj, and then Niranjan Swami learned all about it, and it goes on nicely in the Ukraine. So it's not that people aren't aware of this. I don't know, maybe because Hawaii is out in the middle of the ocean, you're not aware of it. But yeah, it's talked about a lot, and as the more time passes, it's becoming kind of mainstream, and therefore that's where it starts, talking, thinking, feeling, willing. But it's really, really true. People are understanding that if we're going to continue as a movement, yes, devotees obviously are going to have to be cared for first and foremost. It's not just about keeping the trains running on time, the offerings going and the artis going and the bills being paid. That's not a movement, that's just a cage. But what about the bird? So sure, that's a big part of what's going on with this, strategic planning stuff. How long it will take to manifest. I was hearing a class Irmila was giving, I think it was right on this Sangha. I think I was hearing a repeat of a recording about devotee care and how we have to. What is it? What was she saying? Maybe you can refresh my memory, because I'm pretty sure she said it on this Sangha. It was, we have to change how we think. That we are ISKCON. It's not anybody else's responsibility. It's our responsibility. Otherwise, we're always pointing the finger. The GBC is pointing at the Grihastha ashram. Why aren't you doing this? This is a family thing. And other people are pointing at the GBC. Well, why aren't you doing this? This is a leader thing. But the fact is, it's all of our thing. And so, of course, it doesn't mean everybody has to drop everything. We have to be organized. So therefore, that's one of the big initiatives on the strategic planning to improve ISKCON that's going on. And wherever it is going on, certainly the devotees appreciate that yatra. I want to see this face to face. I'm sure I will. Of course, it will be a special time. It'll be a festival time. I've just booked my flight to the Ukraine from after I do my 2-week tour at the UK. In the first 2 weeks of September, I'll be doing a kind of whirlwind tour of the UK with a seminar, and then I go right to the Ukraine. And from what I hear, the Ukraine is really together, on this, on devotee care and counseling system and people first. So I want to talk to a lot of the local people about that. I get that in Mayapur, when I talk to the Russian-speaking Sangha, that they're the most together Sangha, the Russian-speaking Sangha. It means Russia, the Ukraine, a lot of the CIS states. Because of this devotees first policy that Niranjan Swami has, for example. Okay, that's really all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Sure. Okay, here we go. Let's go back into full slideshow mode. Slide, sentimental fictions. Here they are listed. Illusory Prabhupada. So this is going to be illustrated by a Borijan Prabhu anecdote. Figurehead Prabhupada. We can make Prabhupada just a sentimental figurehead and not really have him present in our lives. Vapu Limited Prabhupada. He's that grand old man who walked among us for 12 years and now he's gone, Diksha Guru Forever Prabhupada, It's actually an insult to only relate to. It's not enough to say he's the Diksha Guru for all generations, as some kind of reactionary response to abuse of power. He's the founder-acarya. He's more than Diksha Guru. Give me a break. So Diksha Guru Forever. Okay, now let's look at these sentimental fictions. Prabhupada's going to have a good laugh at this one. The background is Borijan Prabhu and his good wife Jagatarini were pioneering Hong Kong. They were isolated, as people often were in the pioneer Hare Krishna explosion days. So that they were all by their lonesome in little old Hong Kong, or big old Hong Kong. That's part of the problem. No association. Well, they had some association, but it wasn't very good. There were devotees kind of in the Pacific region that were very critical of things going on in ISKCON and indirectly of Prabhupada. So they were taking actually some bad associations. Out of the blue, they got a telegram from Satsvarup Maharaj, 1974, saying, get ready, Prabhupada and I are coming in 2 weeks. So in their kind of weakened, isolated state, they had been gradually neglecting the basic program that Prabhupada had given us for spiritual life. the morning program, regulative principles, thinking that it was okay, that, Prabhupada understands, blah, blah, blah. And so, but when they actually, as soon as they picked up Prabhupada at the airport, as soon as they saw him, they immediately realized, oh my God, just by Prabhupada's vibration, we had an illusory Prabhupada in our hearts and our minds, and we have become illusory disciples. So here's how Prabhupada, or Borijan Prabhu, nicely puts it in My Glorious Master. Quote, I had been imagining a Prabhupada that allowed a compromise of purity and Krishna-conscious practices. When I was suddenly confronted by the real Prabhupada, the illusory Prabhupada dissolved like mist after sunrise. Prabhupada, as he himself said, was 90% liberal, but that other 10% was strict. And so where did that 90% liberal come from? It came when Prabhupada first landed in San Francisco in 1967, and Allen Ginsberg was among the people that greeted Prabhupada. And later, because Ginsberg is a famous personality of the day, the San Francisco Chronicle interviewed Ginsberg about who this person is, Swami Bhaktivedanta. And one of the things that Ginsberg said, he said a lot of nice things, but he also said he's very conservative. So the next day, the devotees showed Prabhupada, or Swamiji at the time, the piece in the Chronicle, and Prabhupada raised his eyebrows and said, conservative? I'm 90% liberal. I mean, just by coming and walking among us, he was so liberal, crossing the ocean, which sadhus don't want to do, associate with Videchis, foreigners outside Bharat-Varsha. So he was very liberal. Just by coming and the way he introduced Krishna consciousness, reducing 64 rounds, 32, finally 16. But he didn't compromise. He was forever adjusting details, but he was never compromising principles. So as Borijan Prabhu says, that other 10% was very strict. So we can have this illusory, sentimental idea of Prabhupada understands. He does understand. But if we want to call ourselves really Prabhupada Nugas, followers of Prabhupada instead of just sentimental fans, we have to really be in touch with him, his Vani, his eternal vibration, and know who he is and what he wants, what he expects of us, and how we can really come close to him by following him. He lives forever by his divine instructions. Okay, so illusory Prabhupada. Figurehead Prabhupada. So just as we have in America George Washington, the grand old father of our country, so like in the UK they have the Queen, who, and this year in fact is her Diamond Jubilee, 60 years on the throne, 52. I was all of 6 years old when Queen Elizabeth ascended to the throne. And she served her country faithfully as the Queen. But as we know, Britain is not a monarchy. It's no longer a monarchy. It's a parliamentary democracy. And it's not because they adore the Queen that they necessarily let the Queen rule their lives. The royals. She's one of the royals. She's the head royal. So we can't, as time goes on, let Prabhupada become just a mere distant symbol in our lives. And this is very nicely expressed in the quote that I'm going to scroll into now from Satsuru Maharaj's book, Vaishnava Behavior. Quote, the Guru is not like a family priest for performing ritual ceremonies, nor is he a figurehead appointed by the institution, without real presence in the heart and mind of the disciple. Rather, the spiritual master is the center of the disciple's very being. Quote, he is my Lord, birth after birth. Excuse me, I've got to take a drink here. So every day we say it. If we sing Guru Puja, Chakudan Dilo Jay, Janme Janme Prabhu Se. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. Janme Janme Prabhu Se. He is my Lord, birth after birth. Prabhupada initiated this function every day in all of his temples for all generations of ISKCON devotees for all time. Do we believe what we're saying? He is my Lord, birth after birth. So, as Sridhananda Maharaj also said at his nice talk at the Prabhupada festival. To think that Prabhupada is only only the spiritual master of 4,800 people, and that we all don't have equal access to him in his everlasting Vani form, leads us to an absurd conclusion. What is that absurd conclusion? Is that as time passes, with every successive generation, everybody gets more and more distant from Prabhupada. So that's absurd. That means no more Hare Krishna movement, because already we've seen that in the 80s. When there was not one Hare Krishna movement, there were as many Hare Krishna movements as there were zonal acharyas. And each zone was more together than the Hare Krishna movement. There was no synergy. It was fragmented. And it was dead wrong. So, to emphasize, as our GBC Prabhupada Position Committee is trying to do, that Prabhupada is our founder acharya, is our foundational guru. He is our Lord, birth after birth. It's a very practical understanding to keep our movement going for 5,000, 10,000 years. That we have that opportunity to take it to every town and village. I have given you the framework, Prabhupada would say. Now you have to fill in the rest. Take it to every town, village, and now electronic device. Okay, not figurehead. He's not a mere figurehead, but if we're actually getting it, he is our life and soul. What's another sentimental fiction? Vapu Limited Prabhupada. There are the devotees at New Vrindavan having a good laugh over that one. Well, not over that one. I don't know what sparked that light moment, but I chose it because, yes. But it's funny. In ISKCON's history, even in Prabhupada's time with us, this kind of stuff was going on. If you look, for example, at Prabhupada's scene in the Bowery, he was, we have recordings from that time too. And then Prabhupada's scene at 22nd Avenue, when it got more serious, because he had more committed followers. And those who were just sort of casually coming around Swamiji in the Bowery, when it migrated to 26, not all of them liked it. In fact, to my knowledge, there's only one survivor of the Bowery days, and that's Michael Grant, our Venerable Mukunda Maharaj now, who came out with that beautiful book recently, 26 Miracle at 22nd Avenue. So as the mission began to be revealed, even in those fledgling days, if you were just sentimentally attached to hearing the magic of the Swami, and just pick up on the vibe and not really get what he's saying and commit to Krishna consciousness, which Prabhupada was always stressing from day one. He didn't know how long he had to live. Please understand, and please try to pass it on to others. Same thing happened at out in San Francisco. Big family feeling, and then when the whole thing started to really take off globally, right around the time I joined, 1970, a lot of people couldn't take it, and that was the end of the fun. No more fun with Swamiji, and because they didn't follow the Vani, it was really all about just the scene, in the hate, or just sitting around with Swamiji at the Pacific Ocean, all glories of the Pacific Ocean. Wonderful days. The Vapu was a wonderful incentive to serve Vani. But you got to keep it. If we're going to be part of the Hare Krishna movement, we have to keep moving internally to get it. So even as I'm speaking this, I'm still, nowhere near what it's going to take for me to enter into Prabhupada Sangha, in Krishna Loka. So this is also a kind of a practice. So we're always having to advance and know that Prabhupada's not limited to his Vapu and the circumstances surrounding his Vapu. One of Prabhupada's most terse and concise statements about Vani and Vapu, he composed right after he finished the CC, right in his rooms above the Honolulu temple, when he wrote concluding words for Chaitanya Chaitamrita. Here are those words. Quote, "There are two ways of association, by Vani and by Vapu. Vani means words, and Vapu means physical presence. Physical presence is sometimes appreciable and sometimes not. But Vani continues to exist eternally. Therefore, we must take advantage of the Vani, not the physical presence, or we could add not merely the physical presence. Of course, Prabhupada knew it was necessary for him to come. He couldn't just send those 200 sets of Bhagavatams over and not show a personal example of what's in those books. He knew he had to do that to start the Hare Krishna movement. And thank God, he was recorded so much, he was photographed so much, filmed so much, and did so many things in so many ways all over the world. We have such a record of his Vapu Lila, but still, it's only the top of the iceberg. Or even if you want to say it was half, Prabhupada said it's only half. So Prabhupada is not limited to what he had a chance to reveal during his Vapu. There is so much more to come if we follow him in Vani, and we have to get that. And as wonderful as it is to see, there's Prabhupada's Vapu that Krishna let us see with us, there's so much more to come. Back to the future with our founder-acarya. Okay, here we go. Diksha Guru forever Prabhupada. As I said in the beginning of this section, this is an upasidantic, sentimental, reactionary response to abuse of power. It's not the way it works according to Guru Sadhu Shastra or tradition, nor is it even a praise of our founder-acarya that you just coronate him the perpetual Diksha Guru. It's not. It's not the essence of what Prabhupada did. And here's a quote from his Vapu Lila, revealing his intentions. Here it is. Just one letter, just one of the many indications. Quote, keep trained up very rigidly, and then you are a bona fide guru, and you can accept disciples on the same principle. But as a matter of etiquette, it is the custom that during the lifetime of your spiritual master, you bring the prospective disciples to him, and in his absence or disappearance, you can accept disciples without any limitation. And now my underline follows. This is the law of disciplic succession. I want to see my disciples become bona fide spiritual master and spread Krishna consciousness very widely. That will make me and Krishna very happy. Famous letter, or excerpt from a famous letter. As Sridhananda Maharaj pointed out, in the some 200 times that Prabhupada would quote, Yare Dakotare Kaha Krishna Upadesh, Amara Guru Hanya Tare Desh. This is Lord Chaitanya's order to everybody. I order every person in the universe to become a guru, like that. He wasn't commanding us to become an imitator. He wasn't commanding us to replace him as founder-acarya, but he was begging us, and he was very concerned that because he was so exalted and we did have so much reverence for him, that somehow we wouldn't get it. We wouldn't think that we'd be able to be a spiritual masters after him. It's not a big deal, as Prabhupada himself would always say when he would quote that verse. Little things strictly follow. Of course, that may be a big challenge, but little things strictly follow, and then we're enjoined to give shelter. Either shiksha, diksha role, as appropriate for who we are and what our circumstance is. So it's no praise of Prabhupada to crown him the Diksha Guru forever, and we already have access to him as founder-acarya. It just simply has to be recognized, educated, promoted from every rooftop in every town and village, or at least everywhere there's devotees in this kind. So, okay, all right, that's the next one. Let me just do a little recap, because it's 1:30 where I am, it's 7:30 where you are. And so now the transition to the next, I'll just say, well, first of all, just say we looked at some impersonal fictions. Hopefully we dispelled them. We looked at some sentimental fictions. Hopefully we dispelled those. And then looking forward, unencumbered by impersonal and sentimental notions about our founder-acarya, Srila Prabhupada, we are now free to cultivate our own unique, authentic, loving relationship with him. And that's what we'll do next time when we do the last lesson. Before I forget, Ramanand, I think I saw on your website calendar that there's no classes next weekend. Is that true?
Really?
Ramananda?
I'm here.
Yeah, you had some, it looked like school was out or nobody's home next weekend. Is that true?
No. July the 21st.
Yeah, that's next weekend. Oh, you've got it up there. Okay, the last time I checked your site, it looked like you were canceling all classes for the next weekend. But if that's not right, maybe, okay, good to hear that. I was wondering about that. Okay, so let's open it up for questions and comments, and let me get into that control panel so I can mute myself about the sentimental fictions. Anyone?
Everybody's unmuted. So if there's any questions or comments, go ahead. I have a quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much related to your seminar, but just because you mentioned about Rithviks. It's curious that every
Ramananda, did you notice I didn't say the R word? Aren't you proud of me? I didn't even say the R word. Didn't say the R word.
Oh,
you just said it.
Oh, okay. I thought you did. Sorry.
Because as soon as we get into, as soon as you mention it's a perfectly good word, but it's so politicized you can't even say it without the wrong connotations. Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, maybe my question is not appropriate then. I'll tell you what. I'll just ask it, and then if it's not appropriate, then you can just say, "Well, it's not appropriate for this time, circumstance, sangha." In my experience, any Ritvik that I've ever come in contact with, they're extremely offensive. It's just like their modus operandi is their operatis. I don't know if that's the same experience everybody else has had, but I have, and I'm just curious, why would that be? But one thing is they're saying that, Srila Prabhupada, that no one else is qualified, just Srila Prabhupada can give Diksha forever. But part and parcel of that is they're just vehement about everything about it. They're really offensive in many, many ways about anybody and everybody. So I just find that curious.
They're angry.
Anger, that's one thing I really see.
Yeah, well, we now have a movement to care for the devotees. And it seems like that wasn't the case previously. It was money, men. These are the important things. And also a lot of the fall downs and a lot of the dealings, the harsh dealings, were not good. Correct?
Sheshar, are you still there?
Yeah, I just unmuted. I think maybe because one of the norms of the seminar is we'll be so busy glorifying Srila Prabhupada we won't have time to criticize anyone else. Maybe we are breaking a norm. I mean, there's a nice way to comment on it, I suppose, because this is what Vidag just said. Sure. I mean, all of us, anybody on the GBC, anybody from the topmost place to the most humbly placed person in ISKCON can point to how I've been done wrong. So what are we going to do about it? Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur might have given the principle behind it when he said, simple negation of the mundane does not in and of itself establish a transcendental truth. So I've always also thought the Ritvic philosophy, I just said the R word, was born of fury. Its reaction to abuse. But but that's not enough. It's like being a vegan. A vegan is a reaction to slaughter or exploitation of animals. So it's the antithesis of exploitation. But until you come to this spiritual synthesis, the transcendental resolution to it all, you don't really have anything positive. So 108 wrongs don't make a right. Yes, so much abuse, so much harsh dealing, so much mistreatment. What are we going to do about it? We're going to forever just you don't come up with bogus solutions. You don't crown the founder-acarya, the perpetual Diksha Guru, and that's going to make it right. No. Srila Advaita Swami wrote a nice paper called "Where the Ritvics Are Right and Where the Ritvics Are Wrong." And of course, where the right is that sure, they consent. This is baloney, that people are being denied access to Srila Prabhupada directly, foundationally, primarily, mainly. That's true. And God knows it's taken us decades, institutionally, to come to that point. But wrong is that you concoct some philosophy to give everybody access. That's also wrong. So you don't do that. And what we don't like, and if you're really rabid Ritvic, if you want to say the double R word, rabid Ritvic, then it comes to a point where, if you're so full of fury after so many decades and you're not going to do something positive, then maybe there's something in you got to look at, right? Because what we don't like in ourselves, we tolerate even less in others. That's just a simple human psychological fact. We project our own anarthas onto others. Why is that person so lusty? Why is that person so angry? Why is that person so greedy? Well, if I'm meditating on that, that's probably because there's a lot of lust, anger, and greed in me that I don't want to face, so I just project it onto the other person. It takes one to know one, right? So, so much for that.
Also, there's a little balance to what I just said. We shouldn't blame anyone outside of ourselves for what happens to us. We have to own our own, misery or karma, whatever, So some of these devotees, they haven't been trained properly. You don't go on the internet and just rip everybody. That's ridiculous. So, but at the same time, I heard that one of the GBC men recently, Madhukanta Prabhu told me this yesterday. It showed up on Rochan's site. I don't even go to the Sampradaya San. I don't read the stuff. But it was in all caps that we cannot even start a discussion about some things, and then, it just opens the door for that we're recognizing their position, or, this is kind of also a policy, that's been for a long time, that there's no forum for discussion with cool heads in the mode of goodness. And so then you end up with this polarized, people yelling at each other and taking a very, extreme position. Something
this
like
is
that.
why I was encouraged. Okay, you want me to comment, Prabhu, or no?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, this is why I was encouraged last year. I saw you last year, right, in Mayapur, Jagdish, Prabhu?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you weren't there for the ILS Sangha, but I was encouraged when I saw for the first time in, I don't know, maybe since Prabhupada left the planet, a real attempt for the topmost levels of our leadership to listen to and communicate with the middle level, which has been, isolated and discouraged for decades. So there is a forum, more and more. It's happening, and next year it's going to be even more like that, because somehow or other, our governing body trusts one of its committees to do this whole strategic planning thing, which is, as Gopal Bhatta Prabhu points out, he's pushing the GBC from behind. That's how he puts it. This is SPT, Strategic Planning Team. They're a committee, just like we're a committee, Prabhupada position. But somehow the GBC trusts Gopal to do these initiatives because somehow they're comfortable with him. Maybe because he left ISKCON for so long and he made a lot of money in the corporate world, and they're comfortable with corporate culture, which is what they're in. I guess that's Krishna's way of working with it. It's not ultimately where we want to be, varnashram culture, but it's Krishna's working with it by working through a person, namely Gopal Bhatta Prabhu, who was out of ISKCON for years, made a lot of money, gained a lot of experience about organization, and now has brought that kind of experience to the table, and somehow the GBC is comfortable with it, and he's doing good stuff. So I see more and more and more this is going to build this kind of communication, and you say forum, and real needs, interests, and concerns. It's not going away because the devotees want it. The GBC wants it too. They just don't want, nuts to take over the movement. So even if they've done nutty things, they'll be damned if they're going to let all the nuts in the house. So yeah, I agree. If some GBC went on, and in all caps, which in journalese means you're screaming it, got on that level and was screaming at the guy in the Sampradaya's son, yeah, that's not going to serve any. That's not going to do any good. Sure. But there are forum more and more, believe me, because leaders who are successful, who do put devotees first, who do care, are opening up communication, and that's where the devotees are going. So leaders are more and more getting that. It's just Lord Chaitanya gradually purifying us, helping us to grow up and become human beings and become adults, or else I wouldn't participate in it. I've been a gadfly, a part of the loyal opposition for decades myself. But I agreed to be on this committee because I could see that even people on this committee that I had an attitude about for decades, they're getting it, they're growing up too, they're advancing. And it was good for me to see this, because we tend to stereotype each other, based on what somebody said 20 years ago or 30 years ago or what they did. But we're actually all, if we're following our founder-acarya, in process, and we're all getting purified. So I'm basically encouraged by the mood of the GBCs on the committee I'm on, and I'm also encouraged by what's happening on the whole GBC dialoguing with leaders in the movement. So we just have to be secure and mature in our own mission in the mission. That's the key for me, I'm feeling good because I got a mission. I'm teaching, and I'm writing more, and I'm circulating and getting a life, So we just got to do that, wherever we are in the world, and know that the movement is really being controlled and orchestrated by Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya. Okay. Any more comments, questions about impersonal and sentimental misconceptions about our founder-acarya? Oops. Let's see here. There we go. All right, Ramananda Prabhu, I guess that's all.
So the next week is the final lesson?
The final order. The final order, yes. Hit the road, Jack. Yeah, I have to hit the road in 3 weeks, so. Yeah, we're going to do one more lesson. And as we speak, it's really, one reason I know Prabhupada wants me to do this is because I've been getting so much support and encouragement here in Gainesville, Alachua. And right as we speak, there's a devotee in Brazil who's professional web designer and PowerPoint designer. He's taking these slides like that you've been looking at, and he's actually making them world class. The next time, if you want, I can do it again next year, I suppose. But you will see really artistic slides done by this devotee. So that's just only external, of course. That means I have to grow too, and I will, I know, because I want to do this, and I'm learning every time I present it. So I hope it's been better than last year, but I only know if I hear from you. So drop me an email, folks. Let me know what you think of how it's going.
I just took a count. 22 devotees on that.
22 from all parts of the world, or mainly Hawaii?
No, from all over. We have Dinesh Krishna Prabhu in India, Krishnadas Prabhu, he's in Pakistan. And of course, we have all the local devotees here in Hawaii. But Rishad Dev Prabhu, he's in England.
How about Europe and South America?
Paula Butterfree is in Europe, I don't see anybody in Europe except Rishad Dev.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. I'll see face to face, eye to eye, how Europe's doing again when I go back to the UK and then the Ukraine. And also Croatia. I'm going to be in Croatia for a week, and also Hungary. Yeah, Hungary and Croatia. So we'll see. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Prabhus. Manchakalpadrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Jai Srila Prabhupada, our founder-acarya. Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.